years of pitiless combat. No rest, no sleep like other men. And yet the spring wind blows super die.
Before the Terminator ever said, "I'll be back," Arnold Schwarzenegger swung a sword as Conan the Barbarian. Released in 1982, this brutal fantasy epic changed how Hollywood portrayed heroes and mythology. But behind the sand-covered sets and muscle-bound glory lies a world far stranger than the movie itself. From real blood spilled on camera, to occult consultants, dangerous stunts, and production choices that still spark debate, the making of Conan the Barbarian was as wild as the Hyborian Age it portrayed. So, grab your sword and step into the shadows of the film's untold history. Here are 20 weird Conan the Barbarian facts you didn't know. Real human blood was used in a scene. One of the most disturbing legends from Conan the Barbarian involves a ritual sequence that went far beyond movie magic. During the filming of a blood sacrifice scene, the production used real animal blood, purchased from a local butcher in Spain, the stake, because director John Milius wanted the scene to feel completely authentic. According to crew accounts, fake blood clotted too quickly under the heat, so the team resorted to the real thing. When the cameras rolled, the smell was overpowering. Several extras reportedly gagged or turned away, and parts of the set had to be scrubbed repeatedly because the blood dried into the sand and props. It was so realistic that, when the footage was shown to studio executives, some believed it was an actual ritual recording. Milius later admitted that he wanted the audience to feel the weight of death in every frame. Today, that choice might have sparked animal rights backlash. But in 1982, it only added to the film's legend of unrestrained intensity. The scene was gruesome, unforgettable, and set the tone for the rest of the movie's dangerous obsession with realism. The director made Arnold bite a real dead animal. When director John Milius said he wanted Conan the Barbarian to look real, he meant it literally. In one notorious sequence, Arnold Schwarzenegger was told to bite into a piece of raw animal meat that wasn't a prop. The crew had prepared a fake carcass for the scene, but Milius wasn't satisfied with how it looked under the lights. So he ordered a real animal carcass from a local butcher in Spain. Arnold reportedly protested, but Milius insisted, saying, "A barbarian doesn't fake hunger." When the cameras rolled, Arnold bit into it for real, and the reaction you see on screen is completely genuine. The stench of raw flesh under the studio lights made the entire crew gag. And after filming, the production's medical staff rushed to sanitize Arnold's mouth to prevent infection. It was the kind of extreme realism Milius was famous for. While many praised his devotion to authenticity, others thought it went too far. In hindsight, the moment added a raw brutality to the film, but also revealed how far 1980s filmmakers were willing to go before CGI and safety protocols changed Hollywood forever. The giant serpent was controlled by prison labor. The terrifying giant snake in Conan the Barbarian looked alive, but what powered it was stranger than fiction. The massive animatronic serpent was actually built and operated with the help of Spanish prison labor. The production team had partnered with local authorities to access skilled metal workers from a correctional facility near Madrid. These inmates were paid a fraction of normal wages, but helped assemble the mechanical monster under supervision. The serpent itself stretched over 40 feet long and required nearly 10 people to operate its movements. During filming, Arnold wrestled with it for hours, sometimes bruising himself as the machine's coils tightened too hard. The irony wasn't lost on the crew. A film about slavery and survival literally employed prisoners behind the scenes. When news of the collaboration leaked, it caused a quiet scandal among Spanish unions, who accused the production of exploiting cheap labor. Milius dismissed the criticism, claiming it was a historical parallel to Conan's world. The controversy faded quickly, but the truth remains. One of the most iconic monsters in cinema history was built by real convicts who never appeared in the credits. Several extras were actually ex-convicts. The eerie realism of Thulsa Doom's cult scenes came from more than just great acting. Many of the extras weren't actors at all. They were ex-convicts and street drifters hired from local towns. The production struggled to find enough people who looked rough, wild, and unpolished, so casting coordinators recruited men from halfway houses and low-income neighborhoods around Almeria, Spain. Some of these extras reportedly came straight from correctional facilities, given small daily wages and free meals. It created an atmosphere on set that felt dangerously authentic. Crew members recalled moments when fights broke out among the extras between takes, and several props went missing after shooting. One assistant director later admitted that keeping order was a constant battle. "They looked perfect on camera," he said, "but off camera, we had to keep an eye on everyone." Despite the chaos, the cult sequences ended up looking astonishingly real, their intensity heightened by people who had lived rough lives. It was an experiment that blurred the line between casting genius and reckless risk-taking, and it gave Conan the Barbarian a raw edge that few fantasy films have ever matched. The cult scenes were inspired by real secret societies. Thulsa Doom's chilling cult didn't come from pure imagination. Director John Milius drew direct inspiration from real-world secret societies and tragic historical events. One of his strongest influences was the Jonestown Massacre of 1978, when over 900 followers of Jim Jones died in a mass poisoning. Milius was fascinated by the psychology of blind devotion and wanted to reflect that terrifying charisma in James Earl Jones' character. To prepare the cast, he reportedly showed them documentaries on real cult movements, including footage of initiation rituals and communal chanting. Some of the runic symbols used in the film were borrowed from genuine pagan traditions. During filming, Milius encouraged extras to treat the set like a real spiritual ceremony, often shouting, "Believe it," before each take. James Earl Jones later said that Milius made him study footage of political leaders known for hypnotic public speaking, including Adolf Hitler and Jim Jones. The result was a performance that felt eerily authentic, a blend of mysticism and menace. In the end, those scenes became some of the most unsettling in fantasy cinema, precisely because they were rooted in disturbing reality. Arnold nearly lost his finger, filming a sword scene. Arnold Schwarzenegger's legendary strength couldn't protect him from one of Conan the Barbarian's most dangerous moments. During an intense sword-fighting sequence, disaster struck. One of the prop swords shattered on impact, sending sharp metal fragments flying. One piece sliced into Arnold's right hand, nearly severing a finger. Crew members rushed to help as blood poured from his gauntlet. Production was immediately halted, and Arnold was taken to a nearby medical tent where his hand was stitched and wrapped. Yet, in true barbarian spirit, he insisted on finishing the scene before the swelling got worse. The injury wasn't his only one during filming. Arnold endured bruises, burns, and muscle strains from performing his own stunts. Director John Milius famously banned stunt doubles for key battle scenes, arguing that Conan had to look real. Arnold agreed, saying later that pain was part of the performance. The near loss of his finger became one of the production's many war stories, a badge of honor in a movie that demanded blood, sweat, and scars in equal measure. It was a reminder that before CGI and green screens, action heroes risked real injuries to bring epic moments to life. The blood sacrifice set caught fire during shooting. What began as one of Conan the Barbarian's most atmospheric scenes nearly turned catastrophic. During filming of the blood sacrifice sequence, the heat from powerful stage lights caused the fake blood and foam set pieces to ignite. Within seconds, flames spread across the altar, turning the mystical ritual into a real emergency. Crew members scrambled for fire extinguishers as extras ran for safety, many still in full cult robes. Astonishingly, director John Milius refused to stop filming at first, shouting, "Keep rolling!" believing the chaos might produce authentic reaction shots. Cinematographers obeyed, capturing moments that later made it into the film's final cut. The fire was eventually contained, but not before some props and costumes were destroyed. Arnold was reportedly only a few feet from the flames when the set collapsed in one corner. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt, but the smell of burned blood and fabric lingered for days. Afterward, the crew joked that the gods of Crom had cursed the production. Milius called it a sign that their movie had come alive. Either way, the moment cemented Conan's reputation as one of the most unpredictable film shoots of the 1980s. A real witch was consulted for the ritual scenes. When it came to dark magic, the Conan production didn't rely solely on Hollywood imagination. To make the film's occult sequences convincing, the crew actually brought in a self-proclaimed witch known locally as the Oracle of Madrid. She was a spiritual consultant who practiced neo-pagan rituals and claimed to understand ancient runes and symbols. Director John Milius, fascinated by myth and esoteric history, hired her to design authentic ritual elements for Thulsa Doom's cult scenes. She advised on the arrangement of candles, the design of the serpent sigils, and even suggested certain chants to give the ceremonies vibrational power. Some cast members, including Sandahl Bergman, reportedly felt uneasy about her presence. One night, after a particularly intense ceremony scene, several extras swore they heard chanting continue after filming stopped, but no one was near the altar. Whether coincidence or imagination, the crew treated it seriously. From that point on, many refused to enter the ritual set alone. The witch was quietly dismissed near the end of production, but her influence remained visible in every eerie frame. Even today, fans argue that her touch gave the film's darker moments an unnerving realism that's hard to replicate. The original script by Oliver Stone featured mutant lizards. Before Conan the Barbarian became the brutal sword and sorcery epic fans know, it started as something completely different. The first script, written by a young Oliver Stone, took place in a post-apocalyptic future where Conan fought armies of mutant lizard men. Stone envisioned a world destroyed by nuclear war, where barbarism rose again among the ruins of civilization. His version was described as Mad Max meets mythology. It was wild, ambitious, and nearly impossible to film on a 1980s budget. Director John Milius loved the intensity, but grounded the story in a more traditional ancient world. He kept Stone's spirit of violence and destiny, but dropped the mutant creatures and futuristic setting. Stone later admitted he wanted to make an end-of-the-world myth that blended science fiction and fantasy, but the studio rejected it as too extreme. Yet, traces of his script remain, especially in the film's tone of survival, chaos, and rebirth. It's hard to imagine Conan fighting mutants instead of sorcerers, but that early vision showed just how unconventional the project was from the very beginning. The movie we got was fierce, but Stone's version might have been something truly apocalyptic. Arnold was ordered to stay silent for weeks before filming. One of the strangest behind-the-scenes techniques used on Conan the Barbarian didn't involve swords or fire, but silence. Before filming began, director John Milius instructed Arnold Schwarzenegger to avoid speaking entirely for several weeks. He believed that too much modern speech would make Arnold sound civilized, something Conan was not supposed to be. During this period, Arnold communicated mostly with gestures on set and trained daily in sword fighting and horse riding without saying a word. Milius wanted him to embody a primal, instinctive warrior who relied on physical presence instead of dialogue. The result was powerful. When Conan finally speaks in the film, his voice carries a deep, almost ancient resonance. Arnold later said the experience changed how he approached acting. By focusing on movement, he learned to express emotion through posture and expression rather than words. The silence training was unconventional, but it worked. It gave Conan the Barbarian its distinctive tone, a story told as much through grunts, glares, and physical power as through language. Few actors have ever prepared for a role with such disciplined stillness, and it remains one of Arnold's most striking performances. The film almost had a soundtrack by Pink Floyd. Before composer Basil Polidorus created one of the most iconic fantasy soundtracks in film history, Conan the Barbarian almost took a very different musical path. Early in development, the producers approached the legendary rock band Pink Floyd to score the film. At the time, Pink Floyd had just released The Wall and were known for their surreal, atmospheric soundscapes. The idea was to blend ancient imagery with psychedelic music, creating a dreamlike warrior's journey. However, scheduling conflicts and creative disagreements quickly ended the talks. Director John Milius felt the film needed something more classical, something that captured the primal heartbeat of battle rather than abstract emotion. That decision led to Basil Polidorus, whose symphonic score became one of cinema's most celebrated. His music perfectly matched Conan's world, raw, spiritual, and filled with destiny. Still, the thought of Pink Floyd's haunting guitars echoing through the Hyborian Age is fascinating. Some fans have even edited scenes with Floyd's tracks online, showing how close the movie came to having a completely different identity. History took the right turn, though. Polidorus's thunderous drums and chanting choirs gave Conan the Barbarian the sound of legend. The film was banned in several countries on release. Not everyone was ready for it. The film was temporarily banned or heavily censored in several countries, including Finland, Malaysia, and parts of the Middle East. Authorities labeled it morally dangerous because of its depictions of sacrifice, nudity, and sorcery. In some regions, entire scenes were cut, reducing the film's runtime by nearly 15 minutes. The cult rituals and serpent transformations were considered too graphic for public viewing. Religious organizations also protested, claiming the film glorified occult worship and violence. Director John Milius defended his work, calling it a mythic tale about freedom, not evil. The controversy only helped the movie's reputation grow. Bootleg copies spread quickly through underground networks, especially in Europe, where banned films often gained cult status. By the late 1980s, most bans were lifted, and Conan was re-evaluated as a fantasy classic. The censorship battles gave it an edge that many modern films lack, a reminder that it once terrified censors as much as it thrilled audiences. What began as scandal became part of the film's mystique. Arnold's body was too big for his costumes. Arnold Schwarzenegger's legendary physique was his greatest strength on screen, but on the Conan set, it created unexpected problems. The costume department quickly realized that standard armor and leather outfits simply couldn't contain his massive frame. Early fittings ended with broken straps and torn stitching. The blacksmiths and costumers had to redesign nearly every piece of armor from scratch. Metal bracers cracked during sword practice, and several belts had to be replaced mid-shoot because they snapped under tension. The issue wasn't just size, it was movement. Arnold's body was so muscular that certain poses restricted flexibility. Costume designer John Bloomfield modified the armor with hidden elastic seams to allow him to fight comfortably. Despite the challenges, the final look became iconic. Conan's minimal clothing, the fur loincloth, simple boots, and leather straps, wasn't only aesthetic, it was practical. It let Arnold move freely and showed off the raw physicality that defined his performance. The problem that once frustrated the costume team ended up shaping the movie's visual legacy. The less is more approach turned a wardrobe malfunction into one of cinema's most recognizable hero designs. The skulls in the throne scene were real animal remains. The dark throne room at the end of Conan the Barbarian looked menacing for a reason. The bones scattered across the set weren't plastic props. They were real animal remains collected from slaughterhouses near Almeria, Spain. Director John Milius wanted authenticity, arguing that fake bones looked too clean. The art department, under his direction, sourced genuine skulls and femurs from livestock that had already been processed for meat. They were cleaned and bleached, then arranged around the throne to give the impression of ancient sacrifices. The smell, however, was unforgettable. Under hot lights, even cleaned bones released an unpleasant odor, forcing the cast to film in short bursts. Some crew members wore masks between takes. It was another example of Milius's obsession with realism. He wanted viewers to feel the weight of history and death in every frame. Modern productions would use resin or digital effects, but Conan relied on the real thing. When audiences first saw that throne scene, they believed they were looking into a world steeped in blood and power. And in a way, they were. The bones weren't just props, they were the relics of life itself. James Earl Jones' eyes were altered frame by frame. James Earl Jones gave one of the most hypnotic performances of his career as Thulsa Doom, the serpent cult leader. His piercing blue eyes became the character's most memorable feature, but those glowing eyes weren't real. The effect was achieved through painstaking post-production. Digital color grading didn't exist yet, so the editors used a manual rotoscope process. Each frame of film was hand-painted to enhance the color of Jones' irises, giving them that eerie, supernatural glow. It took weeks to complete just a few minutes of footage. The technique required enormous precision. Any mistake could ruin the film reel. The result was subtle, but unforgettable. Thulsa Doom's stare seemed to pierce through the screen. James Earl Jones later said that the role felt different from anything he had done before. Playing a mystical leader gave him a quiet intensity, and the post-production touch added to his aura. Today, the effect might be recreated digitally in seconds, but in 1982, it was a work of visual craftsmanship. It's a small detail, yet it helped transform Thulsa Doom into one of fantasy cinema's most haunting villains. Sandahl Bergman's stunt double was injured twice. Behind the beauty and grace of Valeria, played by Sandahl Bergman, was a series of dangerous stunts that tested the limits of the production. Bergman performed most of her own action scenes, but for the most perilous sequences, a stunt double stepped in. Unfortunately, filming was far from safe. During one sword fighting scene, the stuntwoman was accidentally stabbed in the leg by a dulled blade that still managed to pierce through the armor. After medical treatment, she returned to set only to be injured again weeks later during a complex fall sequence. This time, A mistimed move caused her to crash into a stone wall, fracturing a rib. Instead of halting production, Bergman volunteered to complete several of the unfinished stunts herself. She trained daily with the sword master and endured bruises and cuts that were visible even under makeup. Her dedication helped shape Valeria into one of the most memorable female warriors in cinema. Director John Milius later said that Bergman fought like she believed every swing could save her life. The physical toll behind her performance gave Valeria's death scene its emotional realism, proving that sometimes true strength comes from enduring pain as much as portraying it. The film's weapons were based on real ancient designs. Every weapon in Conan the Barbarian had a story behind it. The production's blacksmiths and prop designers refused to use cheap replicas or generic fantasy blades. Instead, they studied museum artifacts, ancient Nordic relics, and Celtic swords to forge over 200 functional weapons. Each sword and axe was designed to reflect the culture of its fictional tribe. Conan's signature broadsword, for example, was inspired by early Iron Age Hyborian designs, giving it both a primitive and regal feel. The props were made using real steel, not lightweight aluminum, which made them extremely heavy. Arnold Schwarzenegger trained for months to wield them correctly without tiring on camera. Because of their weight, many of the cast suffered minor wrist and shoulder injuries. Still, the result was worth it. When blades clashed on screen, the sparks were genuine, not added later. The clang of metal was captured using live microphones, adding to the film's realism. After production ended, several of the swords were gifted to crew members, while others were stored in Universal Studios archives. These weapons remain a testament to the craftsmanship behind the film, tangible relics of a time when authenticity mattered more than convenience. Some scenes were shot in real ancient ruins. Few fantasy films have achieved the gritty authenticity of Conan the Barbarian, and one reason is the choice of filming locations. Instead of relying on studio sets, the crew shot several scenes in real historical ruins scattered across Spain. The Temple of Doom sequences were filmed in an ancient Roman quarry near Almeria, where the towering rock formations provided a naturally menacing backdrop. The final throne scene was shot near Segovia, among ruins that dated back to the 1st century. Local authorities were hesitant at first, fearing damage to the sites, but the production promised strict preservation measures. Despite their precautions, some ancient stone carvings were reportedly chipped during filming, leading to tension between the Spanish government and the studio. However, the visual payoff was undeniable. The texture of real stone, weathered by centuries, gave the film an organic realism that no set could replicate. Arnold later said that walking through those ruins each morning helped him feel like Conan before the cameras even started rolling. The sense of history and decay in those locations became an unspoken character in the movie itself, grounding the fantasy in the weight of a forgotten past. Arnold was paid $250,000, but lost most of it in taxes. When Conan the Barbarian was released, Arnold Schwarzenegger's face became iconic overnight, but his paycheck told a different story. He earned around $250,000 for the entire film, a modest sum for a leading role even in 1982. The contract included performance bonuses that depended on international box office results, but unexpected taxation issues drastically reduced his earnings. Because much of the production took place in Spain, Arnold was subject to both Spanish and American tax laws. The combination of deductions, legal fees, and delayed payments left him with far less than expected. To make matters worse, part of his salary went toward paying off earlier debts from bodybuilding sponsorship contracts. Despite the financial setback, Arnold viewed Conan as his true breakthrough. The movie's global success catapulted him into stardom and paved the way for the Terminator. He later said that the film gave him something money couldn't buy: credibility as a leading man. In retrospect, that small paycheck launched one of Hollywood's biggest careers. The experience also taught Arnold the importance of financial control, influencing how he negotiated every contract afterward. The Wheel of Pain still exists and actually works. One of the most memorable symbols in Conan the Barbarian is the Wheel of Pain, the massive wooden structure young Conan pushes in the film's opening sequence. Many fans assume it was destroyed after production, but the wheel still exists. Built in the desert outside Madrid, the structure was constructed from real timber and steel bearings, designed to rotate under human power. Over the years, the wheel was left standing, weathered by time, but remarkably intact. Locals in the area discovered it decades later and began restoring it as a cinematic monument. It now functions as a working replica for film fans who visit the region. The original mechanism still turns, albeit slower than before. Visitors describe the experience as surreal, pushing the same wheel that symbolized Conan's years of enslavement and transformation into a warrior. The prop's survival is a fitting metaphor for the film's legacy. Just like Conan himself, the Wheel of Pain endured time, decay, and neglect, yet it remains unbroken. It stands quietly in the Spanish hills, a relic of cinema's most rugged era, and a testament to how deeply Conan the Barbarian continues to resonate with fans. Conan the Barbarian was far more than a fantasy film. It was a grueling test of endurance, creativity, and obsession with authenticity. Every injury, fire, and controversy added to its myth. The result was a movie that felt raw, ancient, and alive, something few modern productions can capture. From real blood to real ruins, from occult consultants to surviving monuments, Conan became a legend born of chaos and determination. Its legacy forged not just a hero, but a cinematic milestone that redefined what epic storytelling could look like. Which of these behind-the-scenes facts shocked you most? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories from film history.